Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to another edition of LabTalks. Today is the 8th of March, and I want to wish, on behalf of everyone here at Alkimi, a wonderful International Women's Day to everybody. I get to host today's LabTalks in Ben's absence, and I'm really excited about this as this is a topic that is very relevant to what is happening around us today, and also one that I'm personally very interested in. Before I reveal what today's topic is, I'm joined today by two wonderful people that I've worked quite closely with. The first is Thomas Scovell, who is our community lead and has been absolutely splendid in providing support to all of our community members. The other person joining me today is Milly, who is the head of marketing at Alkimi. Welcome, Thomas. Welcome, Milly. Today, we talk about the different scams that are going on around us, which unfortunately, quite a few of our friends have fallen prey to. So we thought it's best for us to talk about how these attacks are carried out, what precautions we can take to avoid falling prey to such scams, and what Alkimi is doing to prevent such attacks. Thomas Scovell has been at the forefront of supporting our community and ensuring that our community members receive the support that they need and that they don't fall prey to any such scams, really. And Milly, on the other hand, is working very closely with both Thomas and the development team at Alkimi to ensure that we are putting the right kind of controls to prevent such attacks. So I look forward to speaking in more detail with both Thomas and Milly. Thomas, Milly, welcome to today's podcast. The agenda for today's Lab Talks is that we have been seeing quite a few scams that have been going on around the community. We have seen some community members being scammed off their ads tokens. We've seen fake handles being created. We've seen all sorts of phishing attacks that are being carried out. So this podcast is to talk about the different types of scams that are happening, how people can keep safe, what Alkimi is doing in order to help protect users. And we will have different perspectives. We will have Thomas talk about how he sees all of these attacks being carried out in the community and the kind of precautions that we can take. So Thomas, Milly, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so let's first start with some of the recent happenings, Thomas. Of late, we have seen quite a few attacks that have been carried out on the community members. So can you give us a brief about what are the different types of attacks that users have fallen prey to in the recent past?
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate. Obviously, it really saddens us to see that some of our most community members have been hit by these. There's two distinct types of attacks. There are ones which target Alkimi specifically, and then the ones that target Alkimist wallets. And the first, targeting Alkimi specifically, we have things like airdrop scams. It's really unfortunate the way that a number of the channels that we use work, which make it either easy to completely clone an account. On Telegram, there's basically nothing stopping someone from creating a group that's named exactly our group or a profile that's named exactly like myself, and that happens quite frequently, which allows people to essentially message or invite people to those groups and offer them things like fake airdrops, which ask them to connect their wallet to something that's not Alkimi, and ask them to give permission to do something like essentially access all of their tokens and essentially take those out of their wallets. Then we have members of the community who have their ads tokens in a wallet along with other things, or a wallet they use for things like minting NFTs or airdrops from other communities. And when they're connecting to those other airdrops or other community minting sort of things for NFTs, it turns out that those are essentially scams themselves. And those scammers essentially get access to their entire wallet and are taking all of their tokens, irrespective of what those are, some of which, unfortunately, are ads. So it's both those direct attacks at ads, but also just attacks at the wallets of Alkimists. Either way, at the end of the day, we're seeing quite large amounts of ads being stolen by scammers. And it's really unfortunate. I think there's a number of things, quite simple things that people can do. Maybe it does require them to be a little bit more thoughtful, or just take a bit more time, or just like be a bit more deliberate in terms of, where they put their ads, maybe, put them in other wallets from the wallets they use day to day, or various other things they can do just to protect themselves. Because at the end of the day, these attacks aren't going to stop. And we need to all be sort of mindful of them, because we know that, Alkimi is something we're all in for the long term, which requires us to sort of keep hold of those tokens.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. So from what I gather, there's one attack which happens outside of the Telegram groups itself, where there are malicious sites to which users connect their wallets, and then they ask for permission, which unknowingly users do grant, and that will give them access to some of the functionalities of the wallet that they had not intended to grant. Like, for example, taking away tokens from the users' wallets.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the thing, is that people are quite conditioned just to go, oh, great, just click through. And it's just like, there's almost too many, if using MetaMask, there's a lot of yes, sign this or agree to that. And most of those things are, fairly legitimate. And, you're connecting to, the usual dApps like Uniswap or, labs to Alkimi. And, you always have to do those things. People just got a condition to go, yes, of course, to skip through those things. But when you're connecting to something new, or a site that looks like a legitimate site, but turns out not to be, then you really need to be cautious. I mean, one of the ones we see, unfortunately, on Twitter at the moment is there is still, unfortunately, an Alkimi Exchange account, which is just Alkimi Exchange, but with the I in Alkimi is a lowercase l. So it looks very similar. If you're not, it has as many followers. In fact, I think it has more followers than Alkimi Exchange, because they've bought bots and other accounts to follow it. And, they're being fairly active. Unfortunately, people see that. People see that other people they know follow that, because some people have the wrong one, and that kind of legitimizes it in their view. And when that account is offering an airdrop, people get excited, because like an airdrop is like, you've got to have it now, you've got to do it or you'll miss out. So people feel the time pressure from that kind of thing to go, well, I better do this now. So they become a little bit less thoughtful than would be normally. And it turns out they're on the wrong site. It's just one that looks very much like ours. And all of a sudden they've given permission to something which, had they given permission to the legitimate labs to Alkimi or, Alkimi sites, would have been fine. But giving those same permissions to someone else means that all of a sudden someone else has control of their wallet. You've really got to be careful in terms of looking at that. One of the things we say is that, look, go to alkimi.org, go to our Telegram, find the legitimate links there for all of our Discord, our Telegram, and so forth. Only access those, only use the links that the admins or that are pinned in that channel. Because even we in those channels, from time to time, I occasionally sleep. So for a minute or two, other people can come into that channel and post something that looks, fairly legitimate. So you really just can't trust anyone's post. You have to really look at who's posting it. Are they a legitimate admin? Are they posting to the main channel? Is it definitely in one of our channels before you click through? It is a minefield. You just have to slow yourself down. And think to yourself, I'm in this for the long term. I'm in this because I'm an investor in an amazing project, and no offer of like something free and instantaneous should make me put at risk this investment I've made.
Thank you. Thanks, Thomas. You've covered a lot of ground there. Let me try and break this down into smaller points. So first of all, thank you very much for saying that you do sleep, so we know you're not a hologram, you're a real person. Okay, on a more serious note, so you've covered a lot of points here. The first point being, people get to malicious sites and connect their wallets to these sites. So there is the first problem of getting to these malicious sites. Somebody somewhere tells you that there is this site which is offering an NFT or a token airdrop or something else. So the authenticity of the site that we are connecting our wallets to, that is problem number one. Problem number two that you've highlighted, rightfully so, is the permissions that these sites, in fact, some even legitimate sites would ask of a user, if it is, for example, a soft staking where I just need to know what your wallet address is, what is the token balance, and so on, there is no need for that site, which is supporting soft staking, to actually ask for tokens to be transferred. So there is the minimization of permissions that a site is asking for when you as a user connect your wallet to that site. So that's the second problem. The third problem is probably the most basic of all. Clearly, everybody knows that there are these attacks going on, or at least we think we do know most of the attacks that are going on, but still nobody is immune to these attacks. I would, and this is the true fact that as much as we talk about attacks and what we can do to prevent the attacks themselves are getting sophisticated day by day. So we have to keep on top of these, understand what are the type of attacks, and then try and take the necessary precautions. So there is an underlying behavioral change that we need to bring about in order to prevent these attacks. So these are the three main points that that I can pick up from what you've raised. So coming to the first point, now, how do people actually understand, or how do they verify the authenticity of the site that they're connecting their wallets to? What are some of the steps or precautions that they can take before they say, okay, I'm going to this site and I believe the site is genuine, and so I'm going to connect my wallet to that site?
It's actually a really tricky one, because you have to have something you start with that you trust. If you start from a point of something that is essentially wrong, it's going to lead you down that path. And I think that's the thing with Alkimi, is that for me, all paths lead back to the website. So they lead to alkimi.org, because that has links to all of our social channels. And from all those social channels, you can then step into any of those. You can see what we're currently posting. You can ask the admins if something is legitimate. And we can let you know. There is nothing that is worth, or that is so time bound. There's nothing that we do that you guys do, that Alkimi, the community, do, that is like you have to respond now. We can say that right now. We're not, there's not going to be like an airdrop. Probably there's not going to be airdrop you have to respond to in 10 minutes, right? So there is nothing that is worth just immediately responding to within the Alkimi community, right? Everything that you guys do is deliberate and measured and on a roadmap, right? You guys aren't going to all of a sudden decide to do an airdrop tomorrow and announce it and people to rush into it, right? So I think people need to understand the context that is Alkimi and the way it kind of works. And if people are still kind of excited by something they've seen, they have the time to come into one of those channels, the legitimate ones linked from alkimi.org, and ask the admins, just paste the link. And just ask, is this legitimate? And we will let people know. We do in the community. I run sometimes some giveaways and things, and that's fine. And we sometimes, people on Twitter will do the same thing. But just come and ask. It's definitely worth the time. And so I think that's fairly easy. And we will link you to the other official sites like labs.alkimi for staking and so forth. But just start with a website, find the legitimate channels, come into those, ask the question, listen to the admin specifically, and all the channels we use, Discord, Telegram, and Twitter. You can see, who is an admin, who isn't, who is a mod, that they will be tagged in their profile, so you should know who you should listen to, and it should hopefully give you the time and the space to legitimize whatever it is that you are seeing. So I think that vector within the Alkimi community at least should be fairly clear. The danger is when you're seeing something outside of the Alkimi community they're excited about, but which you're putting your wallet at risk for. And that's another one which I feel like if you're holding something for the long term, it shouldn't be muddled with your hot wallet that you're doing other stuff with.
Exactly.
It's very easy in MetaMask to create another wallet, to move your ads there, and to only access that wallet for staking. That's all you have to do with ads right now. So just move them there, put auto staking on, deal with that. If you want to grab an airdrop from someone else or mint something, do that from a hot wallet. You've got a little ETH in, but don't do that from the one that contains your ads. At least just isolate those things, and that's going to save you, honestly, a lot of these scams that'll prevent.
That's true, and that actually brings me very smoothly into the second question, the second part of that topic that we were discussing. But before we get into the second part, which is the wallet itself, Milly, do you want to talk us through what are some of the precautions that we are taking to prevent people from getting onto these wrong handles, wrong Twitter handles, or wrong Telegram groups? What are those steps? I know you're advertising some of the handles on a regular basis. Can you talk us through what you're doing in order to ensure that people don't get into the wrong Telegram group or don't follow the wrong Twitter handles?
One thing that's been, like Thomas mentioned it, which is to do with the fact that we rely heavily on our Telegram admins because they usually get flagged the problems immediately. So in terms of we had a lot of people get added into groups, they get added into announcement channels, they get added into main channels that might not necessarily be legitimate and probably aren't. And that's one thing that we heavily rely on our community management team to just ideally flag them to us as soon as possible and then just make the community aware. And something that's been, which Thomas touched on, that's been really frustrating recently is that Alkimi account that was advertising the airdrop. And the reason I became initially aware of it was because what they tend to do is retweet a lot of our tweets to make themselves look legitimate. So that's one thing that people can look out for in particular, is that companies that usually pretend to be us are looking for a quick win, so they can't be bothered to, come up with the content themselves. So they tend to just retweet a lot of our content to make themselves look more like the friendly Alkimi team. And in addition to that, we've had a lot of accounts that have been, they cleverly use the capitalization of I's and L's to pretend to be the Alkimi account, and particularly if they're using bots to drive their follower count up, they can have bigger followings than us. Another thing I noticed was that when you go to look at, so some of these tweets were getting thousands of retweets and quote tweets, but when you actually go to look about the lists of retweets and quote tweets, it comes up with a little graphic with the budgie that says there's nothing here, because again, that's using bots to do it. But to answer your question, something that we are now starting to do on a more regular basis, as this seems to be happening, it's happened quite a lot in the last few weeks, is we're posting our legitimate handles on a regular basis, so people have that as a point of reference. But I think Thomas made a great point that if anyone's ever concerned about anything, one, don't click any links, but two, just head to the alkimi.org website, because that is your single truth for where the legitimate accounts will be. What's interesting is that we've had, hundreds of people reporting this Alkimi account, and it's still not been taken down. We're going through the legitimate process of doing the formal reporting of the account, and still nothing's being done to freeze it, considering it's taking significant amount of money from people. So we're trying to do as much as we possibly can to make sure things are legitimate, but as we said before, the things that you can do is always head to alkimi.org or reach out to one of the admins or one of the team. And if something doesn't feel right, the likelihood is it probably isn't right, and you should check with someone about it. It's always, if there's that much money at stake, it's always better to check and come back to it rather than acting out immediately.
Thanks, Milly. Coming back to the second point that you raised, Thomas, which is the permissions that we grant when we connect our wallets to any of the websites. So point number one was about getting to know whether the sites that we are connecting our wallets to are legitimate or not, that we've spoken in detail. The second is, even those legitimate sites, whether they are, whatever project they belong to, are they asking you for the right kind of permissions? Are you happy with granting those permissions? Because I think the ultimate control lies in the hands of the user, and the user may choose whether they want to grant those permissions or not. And if they think those permissions are excessive, then, and you still want to access those utilities, the value that the site is offering, then how do we shield ourselves against losing the assets that are part of that wallet. And I know you briefly touched upon this, but do you want to go into a little more detail?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess, again, I think MetaMask, in other words, are improving over time the way they surface and explain what permissions are being asked for. And the reality is that, and as you say, the good thing about Alkimi Labs with the soft staking is that we're not asking for any spend permission. We're not asking to move any tokens. We're simply asking to view the wallet and so forth, so you can actually see what's in it. And actually, MetaMask recently has made this much more transparent and actually added a security feature. I think for me, hopefully, will help a lot of people, which is that when a site asks to spend your tokens, which is its ability to move those tokens, to steal them, as it were, if it were a scam site, it will ask you for an amount that you allow that site to spend rather than wholesale allow it to move any amount of tokens. And it will actually ask you to type that amount in. It has a suggested amount and a maximum and so forth. But basically, if with respect to ads, if you're on any site that's asking you for how much ads you can spend, stop right there, because that's not a thing the Alkimi ecosystem currently does. You should never, ever allow any other site to spend or move your ads. I think MetaMask has done great things there in terms of exposing that. I think there is a danger in terms of permissions people have given to things in the past as well. There are some scams that kind of don't immediately attack people, but will sort of grant permission to the account and then wait till they've got a certain value of tokens that are worth stealing, and then various other things. A site that I recommend in particular is revoke.cash. There is also an Etherscan. If people might probably use Etherscan, maybe to look at the wallets and see transactions and so forth. They have a version of this, but it's not quite as intuitive. But revoke.cash allows you to see all of the DApps, the websites that have permission to access your tokens in any way. You can see what sites have access to them, and you can revoke their access, which is extremely useful because there could be sites that in the past you've granted access to, which could themselves be hacked and their contracts could be exploited, which could retrospectively access your tokens. So I do recommend, to be honest, either just moving your ads to a new wallet, which is simple and probably the cleanest and best way of doing it, or if for various reasons, like maybe you've staked and you don't want to do that right now because you're going to unfortunately lose your soft staking, but you have concerns about something you might have accessed in the past or recently, go to revoke.cash, see what's accessed, and just remove anything that might mention ads or any other tokens you're concerned about. The only downside of revoke.cash is that it does require a gas transaction to remove the permissions, but if you're concerned, then that's well worth it. Again, I would say that we're the 8th of March now, so we've got like 20 days before this current staking period ends. If you're concerned about things you've been doing in this wallet but not overly concerned, maybe just wait till the end of the staking period, and before you restake, just move your ads to a clean wallet, and then go and stake that wallet. I think these things are worth it just to really clean things up, to make sure there's nothing that might have permissions that could be concerning.
That's true. And also, one of the other very simple things that I've noticed in MetaMask is that you can name your wallets. So even if you have a half a dozen wallet, you can actually name each wallet saying, this is my ads wallet, this is my USDT wallet, my whatever else, or my NFTs wallet, my external wallet for connecting to sites that I don't know, all sorts of names. And you can use those wallets specifically to connect to those sites. So all of your assets are in a way locked up in other wallets, while you actually use only those wallets with absolutely no assets, or those wallets that you're comfortable connecting to sites that you don't have complete trust over.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people maybe a little bit scared of moving things around, just from a gas cost point of view, because, a year and a half ago, maybe, it did actually cost like a significant chunk of change to move a token. But these days, you're talking like $5 to move your tokens to another wallet. It's worth it for, safety of mind. Maybe it did used to cost, $50 at one point in time, the peak in 2021. But these days, create a new wallet, as you say, name it something, name it Ads wallet, move your ads there, only interact with that for staking. And to be honest, your ads in that case are kind of safe as houses. I would say that a lot of people do maybe overly trust Ledger and hardware wallets as keeping things safe for them. But we've seen some of the large attacks we've had have been people who have had ledgers. Because at the end of the day, you insert your ledger to sign a transaction. If that transaction is one that allows people to spend or something else, it doesn't stop anything else from happening. It's hopefully maybe it slowed you down for a couple of seconds, but you're still inserting it, still allowing it to happen. They can still be stolen. Really, the best thing to do is to isolate your tokens rather than put all of your tokens in one ledger. It doesn't really add a lot to it, and in my view.
That's true. In fact, all of your answers actually lead quite well to the next question, Thomas. The next topic that I was intending to discuss with the two of you is the security behaviors that make us vulnerable to these attacks. Because as far as I've seen, having separate wallets, ensuring that we confirm the authenticity of the site, all of these are. Some of them are technical in nature, creating different wallets, ensuring that the permissions are reviewed, revoking permissions once the use of the site is completed, and so on. These are technical, considerations. But there is an underlying consideration which is more behavioral. And from what I've seen mostly, and please feel free to add to this, Milly, Thomas, is most of these attacks are based on human behavior, where we are probably vulnerable to that moment of weakness. We have some urgency. We are probably on the way to pick up somebody. We are running late for a meeting. We're waiting for somebody to deliver a parcel in our house. And then there's this message. And then we say, we don't verify the authenticity of the sender or the site. And then we just click buttons that we shouldn't. So there is an underlying human behavior. So what is it that you guys think, maybe Milly, what is it that you think that we need to do in order to probably slow down and prevent these attacks more from a behavioral aspect rather than from a technical aspect?
The really hard thing is, I know obviously with one of our community members, he was doing something that was like quite nice and legitimate that he thought, and obviously then his wallet was cleared out by the permissions that were granted, like you guys were talking about. And I think, like I kind of touched on earlier, when you have that much skin in the game in terms of like assets in your wallet, because I can imagine he probably had other assets in his wallet, is just slowing yourself down and taking a moment to check and think, which is like the most irritating thing in the world to say, because hindsight is such a bitch. But I think, when you're going through these processes and you're signing up to things or you're excited about things, the only thing you can do by removing human error is just making sure that you have all those sort of legitimate processes in place, so that if that does happen, you've protected yourself as far as possible. I think as well, with things like on Telegram, when you're getting messages from Ben, our founder, saying, "Oh, are you around for a quick chat? I need your help," the likelihood is, whilst the human response, because I've had it sometimes where you then kind of string them on a bit, because I'm just like, Ben would not message me saying that. But I think, it's just sort of taking a moment to step away and breathe and be like, is this legitimate? And it's such a shame, really, because by human nature, you kind of want to interact and engage with these kind of things. But that it's just a shame that a lot of people take advantage. And I know you and me, Chandru, had quite a long conversation about this when this was all sort of kicking off over the last 2 weeks. And it can be really frustrating because you almost think like, oh, how could this have happened? But it can happen to anyone. Like, I know that we talk about crypto scams here, but I know a fair few amount of people, and I was telling you, Chandru, that I've been present when someone got a call from First Direct and it looks like a legitimate number, and they basically took a loan out and moved money across, and the person I was with basically put the phone down and was like, okay, I'm not going to get caught up in the moment here, and re-rang the First Direct number from Google and said, did you ring me? And they said no. And she was like, okay, right, I need to freeze all my accounts. So the biggest, I know, and it's a bit of a rubbish bit of advice, is maybe just take a step back for a moment, because, you know, it's all very go, 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 and there's a lot of FOMO and you don't want to miss out on stuff. But when there's this much at risk, it's sort of like taking a step back and having a breather and thinking, okay, shall I just double check this is legitimate before I jump on it? Because the likelihood is, if it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think time pressure is definitely one of the cues that scammers use. I think the other one you reference is authority. And you know, I get this the Ben scam as well. Because the Ben scam is, for anyone in the community that doesn't receive this, is essentially other team members and admins are messaged by someone that looks like Ben Putley. And unfortunately on Telegram, you can completely clone an account. I think people don't realize that, because on Twitter, you have to spell it differently. But on Telegram, there's nothing that's stopping you having a display name that is exactly like anyone else's. So there are very legitimate Thomas Scovells out there that look exactly like me. They take my user image, they take all of my details, and they will message people like me. And the same thing, there are people like who take Ben Putley's. And in the case of that scam, someone pretends to be Ben, message someone to the team and says, hey, I need a quick loan because I have to pay someone for something, you know, legitimate. They're like, oh, okay, cool. This is my boss. I need to do this for him. And it's using that kind of point of authority. They then go like, I need it quickly, or I'm out and about. They start to use time pressure. They start to make it feel like, you owe them, and use kind of other kind of things. And all of a sudden you start to go, oh, okay, yeah, I suppose I'll kind of do it. And again, you just need to slow yourself down and go, hold on, that's not Ben, or how Ben would act. And also, really importantly on Telegram, go, well, hold on. Yes, anyone can look like someone else, but wait, is this on the thread that I normally speak to Ben on? Or if I go into the channel itself and I click on Ben's name or my name, Thomas's name, in the channel where it says admin beside me, and I click in, is this the same message thread? Because it won't be. It'll be a different message thread. So we always say that admins don't message first, team members don't message first. If you're not sure if someone is, go into the channel, find their legitimate name, which is admin or team member or something alongside it in Telegram, click on that, go into that message thread, and if they're speaking there, then they are the legit member. But at that point, say to them, hey, just so you know, it's a bit weird you messaged me first, uncomfortable with that, or is there a reason why? Have that conversation, but at least you'll be talking to the real person and reminding them, because sometimes admins do. I've occasionally forgotten that I don't DM first and have messaged someone, and I will say no one's ever called me out on it. I'm like, please call me out on it. I shouldn't be doing this. I was myself excited to tell someone they won a prize, right? So what I should be saying to them is message me first yourself through the public channel, and I will message you back to talk to you about it. So even I can be, against my own best advice, which is watch out, guys.
In fact, now that you say, sorry, Milly.
No.
So now that you say it, whenever I've received a DM, there is one feature in Telegram where you can see common groups that you're part of. Right. So that is something that saved me quite a lot of times, because there are quite a few Telegram channels outside of, the Alkimi exchange Telegram channel as well, which Ben and I are part of. So when I just look at our common channels and I see that this is a Ben Putley that is not part of any of these channels that I know him to be part of, then I know this is a scammer. And there's also the fact that, when you get a DM from somebody called Ben Putley, you immediately have a banner which says add contact or block user, which means it tells you that this person has never DM'd you before. So while that could work for me because I've received lots of DMs from Ben, it may not work for everybody in the community. But then please go and check which channels you're part of, which are the common channels that you're part of, whether the official channels are part of the common groups. If so, then go on to those common channels, tag that person and say, I've received a DM from this person. It's very, very unlikely that there are going to be 2 Ben Putleys or 2 Thomas Scovells on the official channel.
Yeah, I think people do worry about offending people by not responding or checking them out. And I would just say, I've never and would never be offended if someone went into the channel to say, I got this message from Thomas, it seems a bit suspect. Is this legitimate? If it is legitimate, I'm happy to say, yeah, it is. It is fine. And if it's not, then I'll let you know. But people won't be offended if you check them out, because we all know that scams are real, and we'd rather people check these things out than just kind of like be nice about it. So I think people just have to worry less about that.
They always say that scammers will know that they have a very limited time frame to get what they need out of you, and as soon as you go and check something, they'll start panicking. So as soon as you withdraw from the conversation, or you would go and check, or you put in the main channel, and you've got out of their grasp of like attention, then they probably would start saying, "Oh no, I need you to reply now. Like, I need this now. And like you said, Thomas and Chandru, as soon as it feels pushy, it's probably not right. So
that's very true.
Yeah.
In fact, coming back to the topic that we were discussing initially, which was the human behaviors, these scammers seem to use all sorts of behavioral traits to ensure that they get the information or get you to act on what they want you to do. Some of the traits that I can think of is, firstly, urgency. Urgency is a big red flag. If people were to say, oh, do this within the next 10 minutes or you lose out, then take a deep breath and say, I'm going to count from 10 to 1. This is something that my grandfather always used to tell me, that, whenever you are in a position of stress, just take a deep breath, count down from 10 to 1, and then take action. And I think that works very well in the Web3 world today, where if somebody is actually asking you to take action very quickly within the next 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever that is, take a deep breath and think about it before you act on it. That's number one. Number two is, I've seen people use authority, as you said. That is, I have a position of authority and I command you to do that. Please, that's a very, very big red flag. Don't act when somebody says something that you have to do because they are in a position of authority. The third one that I've seen is helpfulness, Thomas. And this is probably something that you've encountered, where people seem to be very helpful and say, oh, I see that you posted a message on the official channel and I'm here to help you. I'm here to sort out why your wallet is not connecting. Can I have your seed phrase and I'll sort it out for you? Is that something that you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's extremely common. And is that, and we always try and catch when people do say something in such a way that we know they're probably about to be messaged by someone. It's like, as soon as people ask something, a scammer is sitting there in the channel waiting for, I need help with. And unfortunately, again, I do occasionally sleep, as do our other great admins. And so we won't necessarily be able to respond within a couple of minutes. But unfortunately, scammers sitting there possibly will be. And if someone needs something solved, and we do have some things which are there is some time pressure around staking, right? The window is sort of 5 days or so. But unfortunately, it seems people sometimes leave it to the end of those 5 days and they're panicking about, and especially now the window is 3 months. Sorry, the staking period is 3 months. It feels like if I miss out now, I'm stuck for 3 months. So they're they want to get it done. And so, there is someone's offering me help to get this done and I feel like it needs to be done or I'm going to miss out. They're in my DMs saying they can be helpful. People respond to that. So I would say, again, they're no admins will message you first. And we do try and resolve problems in the channel, unless we say to you, please DM us. If you see the admin say, please DM us, directly DM us, and that's fine. We'll have that conversation. We'll sort it out. We will never ask for your seed phrase or ask you connect to anything other than Alkimi Labs. But go that route. But if someone is approaching you proactively and saying, I can help out, then they are definitely a scammer. That's end of story. And even if it feels like you need to get this sorted, trust us. You can. It might take an hour. It might take a couple of hours. But one of the admins will let you know, and we will get this resolved before the staking window ends. Don't worry.
Yes, absolutely. And to add to that, no admin will ever ask you for your seed phrase or for any money. Admins will never ask you for your money, will never ask you to transfer funds to another wallet. None of that will happen. So if anybody poses as an admin asking you for money or for your tokens or for your seed phrase, that person is definitely a scammer.
Yeah, in end of story, which I think, really kind of hopefully should knock out a lot of these things. But again, people say that they're worried about, missing out on that 3-month staking. So when it's down to the wire, I would say that, and we will try, because again, we've got 20 days. We do let people know well in advance that it's happening. Things like KYC do take time, and that's probably the biggest blocker is for new stakers who need to go through that process. It either does unfortunately work immediately, or it gets logged in the manual queue, so it can take a day or two. So we do encourage people right now, if you're not KYC'd, if you're not currently staking, you can go do that now. You can get ready for staking. And if you have any problems, we've got 3 weeks to resolve it. Please don't leave it till the end of the month, because you're going to feel more under pressure. We're going to be helping out a lot of people. We might not get to you immediately, in which case maybe you're going to fall prey to something that you shouldn't. So the earlier you get started on these things, the better.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good point you raised, that, if you're interested in being a part of the community, in being a part of all the offerings that Alkimi is providing, please go to Alkimi Labs and we'll have a link for Alkimi Labs. The legitimate Alkimi Labs link will be attached. So please go on to the legitimate Alkimi Labs site and complete your KYC. We are in the process of providing many more offerings as part of Alkimi Labs, some of which do require KYC. So please feel free to complete your KYC. So that was about the security behaviors. And one last thing that comes to mind is fear. Is that something that you guys have encountered? Is there any bullying where people are bullied into providing their seed phrases or bullied into taking actions? Is that something that Milly, you or Thomas, you have encountered in the community before? Because that is something that we need to address as well. Milly?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if Thomas, you wanted to jump in, but I think, like we said previously, if the behaviour smells off, it probably is off. I haven't personally encountered anyone that's maybe come to us in terms of being, I think, pressured, but more than bullied is probably the reality of what happens. And it's kind of what we spoke about earlier in terms of like the urgency of needing to do things immediately. Or a lot of the time they say, which I've experienced, is that they need my help. So it will be one of the team members and they need my help and they need money now because they're in a position where they need the money immediately. And then you just think like, that doesn't feel right. So I've not personally experienced the sort of like, I suppose the urgency is a bullying depending on how they deliver it. But yeah, that would be
They're all interconnected, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I do think there is an element of belittling that goes on. Mm-hmm. I think people feel maybe a bit stupid for not being able to do something themselves. Mm. And I think that the scammers approach it in such a way that they make you feel like, oh, you're so stupid, I suppose I'm going to have to help you out. I'm doing you a favor. So go on, just make this easy for me. So I think what people need to understand is that this is complex stuff. It's just not easy. The UX for Web3 is honestly quite terrible still.
Very true.
It's not made for everyday people. And the Alkimi team are doing a great job at making it as easy as possible, given the tools that are at hand. But, no matter what, people are having to use things like MetaMask and wallets that have the UX they have. They are, as I said, MetaMask maybe are getting better, but they are kind of what they are. I don't think it's easy for anyone. I've been using this stuff for years, and I still have to slow myself down, question things. I still find some things kind of a bit opaque. So there's nothing wrong with just admitting that this is a bit tricky or you don't get it. Just ask the admins questions. We're all at different levels we're all at different places in this journey. No one's criticizing you for not getting how to do something. We don't take it as a criticism of how the site works or of our instructions. We take it as a learning in terms of things we could do and change on the site, in terms of how to explain things to make it easier for more people. Because ultimately, we're part of driving mass adoption of Web3 and crypto. We want to make it sure everyone, including your mum, can do this. In order to make it easy for your mum and safe for your mum to do it, we need to get this feedback, and we need to, to improve on these things. So just tell us if something's hard. Just tell us if you don't get it. We won't tell you stupid. We will help you out. That's absolutely what we're here for.
I think that's a really nice closing sentiment. Actually, I think it's like the feel of our community is that we want people to ask questions, and like you said, we're bringing Web3 to a community of people that don't understand it. So it's okay to not understand it, and we're here to help as much as we can, and it's not stupid to not understand how things work. And I think that's a really nice closing sentiment, actually. We wrapped that up really nicely.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining this podcast. It's been wonderful to have you both. And, just want to reiterate some of the things that we've captured is admins will never DM you. Team members will never DM you. Admins, team members will never ask you for money, will never ask you for your seed phrases. Always go to alkimi.org and then get rerouted to any of the sites that you think are hosted by Alkimi. If you do have anybody DMing you on Telegram, on any forum really, report them on the official Telegram handles, on Twitter, wherever you feel fit. If you do encounter anybody who's a scamster, please report them. I know that there are a few scam accounts on Twitter. Please do go ahead and fill out the formal process, the forms that are required to report those scammers. And please know that there are no stupid questions. We are all in this together. We will support you to the best of our abilities. Sometimes there may be some delays, but we will get to it. We have a team of extremely dedicated admins. And we are here to protect you. We are here to support you. So if there is any question that you would like to ask, please do so in the official forum. We will answer you in the official forum, but not DM you. So on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining this podcast. And thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Milly, for joining this podcast as well. It's been great having you. And we'll speak to you soon on the next episode of LabTalks.
Thanks,
Take
Chandru.
care. And,
stay safe out there.
you.
Cheers.